Welcome to How to Write Like Malcolm Gladwell. This is a part of a series of courses, and this series is going to take a close look at Gladwell. In this first course, we are going to look at three major components. The first is Gladwell's introduction. Then we look at how Gladwell describes a person. And finally, we talk about Gladwell's use of statistics and facts. In this course, we take 3 articles. These are all articles that Gladwell wrote himself. And they all were featured in The New Yorker. We look at these specific elements of Gladwell's writing, and we use each of those 3 articles as examples. And that's how we break down and dissect Gladwell's writing. This course is really the beginning of where we see Gladwell in his unique style. And we can take those articles and start to pull it apart. And that's what allows us to see how Gladwell writes. And sometimes this can be an interesting process. And there's a lot of misconceptions behind how to write better. Or someone like Gladwell and the way they write. It could be very dangerous to ask Gladwell himself and say, well, how do you write this way? Or to ask an author like Gladwell what his process is. Very often what you find is disconcerting. Very often a great author, just like a great athlete, can't really explain it. It's something they do naturally or subconsciously. In this course, we break all of those elements down. And we use those 3 articles and those 3 focuses to pick it apart. And that's what I'm so excited to bring in this course. How to write like Malcolm Gladwell. Now, most of you are already familiar with Gladwell. He's written a lot for The New Yorker. There's also a few books that he's very famous for. One of the most famous books is Blink. And this is about the power of thinking without thinking. And we'll talk a little bit about that book. There's also The Tipping Point. This is another one of Gladwell's great books. So I'm not going to go too deep here into some of Gladwell's books. If you're taking this course, you're probably pretty familiar with Gladwell. But if you weren't, I did want to mention some of his titles. Especially those first 2. Those are really the ones he's famous for. And his New Yorker articles as well. If you're interested in his New Yorker articles, go to MalcolmGladwell.com. That's one place where there's an archive of all of the articles that he's written. You could also go over to thenewyorker.com, and you can also find his articles there.